In the heart of a bustling city, where the sounds of honking cars and chattering pedestrians filled the air, a young black father named Marcus found himself in an unimaginable situation. It was an ordinary Saturday afternoon, and Marcus was on his way to pick up his son from soccer practice. With a smile on his face and excitement in his heart, he looked forward to spending quality time with his family. As he walked down the street, he noticed a commotion ahead. A group of police officers had surrounded a nearby corner, their voices raised in urgency. Curiosity piqued, Marcus slowed his pace. Little did he know that this moment would change his life forever. Suddenly, the officers turned their attention to him. Without warning, they approached Marcus, accusing him of being involved in a robbery that had taken place earlier that day. Confused and alarmed, Marcus protested his innocence. "I'm just trying to get to my son," he pleaded, but his words fell on deaf ears. The officers, fueled by their assumptions and biases, handcuffed him and led him away. As Marcus was placed in the back of a police car, panic surged through him. Thoughts raced in his mind: what would happen to his son? How could this be happening? He had always been a law-abiding citizen, dedicated to providing for his family, yet here he was, trapped in a nightmare. Meanwhile, at home, Marcus's wife, Angela, a skilled attorney known for her fierce advocacy for justice, was finishing up her work when she received a frantic call from her husband's friend. "Marcus has been arrested," the voice exclaimed. Angela's heart sank. She immediately grabbed her things and rushed out the door. Angela knew she had to act quickly. As she drove toward the scene, her mind raced with strategies and legal arguments. She had seen too many instances where individuals were wrongfully accused due to systemic biases and misunderstandings. This time would be different. She would not let her husband become another statistic. Arriving at the scene, Angela spotted the police car and the group of officers gathered around it. Her heart pounded as she approached them with determination. "I'm Marcus's wife," she announced firmly, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. The officers turned to look at her, their expressions shifting from authority to uncertainty. Little did they know that Angela was not just any wife, she was a lawyer who understood the law inside and out. As she stepped forward, ready to confront the situation head-on, an air of tension filled the atmosphere. The officers exchanged glances, their confidence wavering as they realized they were about to face someone who truly understood their rights and the legal system. This was only the beginning of a confrontation that would reveal deep-seated issues within law enforcement and challenge perceptions about justice in their community. Marcus Thompson was not just a young black father, he was a beacon of hope and resilience in his community. At 30 years old, he had built a life filled with love, laughter, and hard work. Raised in a neighborhood that faced its share of challenges, Marcus had always dreamed of breaking the cycle of adversity that many in his community experienced. He was determined to provide a better life for his son Malik, who was only 6 years old. Marcus had grown up watching his own father struggle to make ends meet. His father worked multiple jobs to support the family, often coming home exhausted and frustrated. Inspired by his father's dedication, Marcus vowed to pursue education as a means of elevating his family's circumstances. He excelled in school and earned a scholarship to a local college, where he studied business management. After graduating, he landed a job at a reputable logistics company, where he quickly climbed the ranks due to his hard work and dedication. Despite his professional success, Marcus never lost sight of what truly mattered: family. He married Angela 2 years after graduating, and together they created a nurturing home filled with love and support. Angela was not only his partner but also his greatest supporter. As an attorney specializing in civil rights law, she often shared stories of her cases with Marcus, igniting discussions about justice and equality at their dinner table. On weekends, Marcus dedicated himself to being an active father. He coached Malik's soccer team and volunteered at local community events. He wanted Malik to grow up knowing the importance of giving back and standing up for what is right. Their bond was strong. They shared countless moments of joy playing catch in the park, building Lego castles, or simply enjoying movie nights at home. However, the realities of their neighborhood often loomed large. Despite Marcus's efforts to create a safe environment for his family, he was acutely aware of the systemic issues that plagued their community. He had witnessed friends and neighbors face discrimination and unjust treatment by law enforcement. These experiences fueled Marcus's desire to advocate for change within their community. As he walked toward Malik's soccer practice that fateful afternoon, Marcus reflected on how far he had come. He thought about the sacrifices his parents made for him and how they would be proud of the man he had become. But as he approached the field, those thoughts were abruptly interrupted by the chaos that ensued. After being handcuffed and placed in the police car, Marcus felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over him. He couldn't shake the feeling that this situation could spiral out of control. His mind raced with thoughts about Malik. What would he say when he found out? Would he understand? Would this event scar him for life? Meanwhile, Angela was speeding toward the scene, her heart pounding with urgency. She knew she had to stay calm and collected. Her husband needed her strength now more than ever. As she navigated through traffic, she mentally prepared herself for what lay ahead. Angela had seen her fair share of injustices in her career as an attorney. She had fought tirelessly against wrongful arrests and systemic racism within law enforcement. Each case she handled reinforced her belief that change was necessary, and now it felt personal. The thought of her husband being wrongfully accused ignited a fire within her. When Angela arrived at the scene, she took a deep breath before stepping out of her car. She could see Marcus sitting in the back of the police vehicle, looking bewildered and defeated. The sight tore at her heartstrings. She knew she had to act swiftly to protect him. As she approached the group of officers surrounding the police car, she noticed their demeanor shift as they recognized her presence. The confidence they exuded moments before began to waver as they realized they were dealing with someone who understood their procedures and their limitations. "Excuse me," Angela said firmly but respectfully as she reached them. "I'm Angela Thompson," Marcus's wife. Her voice carried authority but also an underlying urgency that demanded attention. The lead officer looked taken aback for a moment but quickly regained his composure. "We're conducting an investigation here," he replied defensively. "I understand that," Angela interjected calmly but assertively. "But my husband has done nothing wrong. You have no grounds for this arrest." She could see Marcus through the window of the police car. His eyes were filled with worry and confusion. The officers exchanged glances as uncertainty crept into their ranks. Angela continued speaking with confidence, outlining her husband's whereabouts during the alleged robbery and providing evidence that would support his innocence, his alibi from witnesses at Malik's soccer practice. As she spoke, Angela noticed how visibly uncomfortable the officers were becoming under her scrutiny. They were trained to handle confrontations with suspects but were unprepared for an assertive lawyer who demanded accountability on behalf of her husband. "Let me remind you," Angela said firmly but with an air of professionalism, "that my husband has rights under the law. You cannot just arrest someone based on assumptions without proper evidence." Her words hung in the air like a challenge. The lead officer shifted uneasily on his feet as Angela continued to press them for answers about why they believed Marcus was involved in any crime at all. With each question she posed, it became clear that their case against him was flimsy at best. As tensions escalated between Angela and the officers, it became evident that this confrontation would not only determine Marcus's fate but also serve as a critical moment highlighting broader issues within law enforcement practices, a moment that could potentially ignite conversations about justice and equality far beyond their immediate situation. Little did they know that this incident would soon become more than just a personal battle. It would resonate throughout their community and spark discussions about systemic change. One family's fight against injustice could serve as a catalyst for something much larger than themselves. As Angela continued to confront the officers, the tension in the air thickened. She could see the uncertainty on their faces, a stark contrast to the bravado they had displayed moments earlier. The lead officer, Officer Daniels, shifted his weight from one foot to the other, clearly uncomfortable under her scrutiny. "We're just doing our job," he said defensively, but Angela could sense that his confidence was beginning to wane. "We received a report about a robbery in this area, and your husband matched the description." Angela raised an eyebrow, refusing to back down. "A description? Based on what? You can't just arrest someone because they fit a vague profile. Where is your evidence? Where are the witnesses?" Her voice was steady but laced with urgency. The other officers began to murmur among themselves, their earlier bravado fading as they realized they were outmatched by Angela's knowledge of the law. She had spent years fighting for justice and advocating for those who had been wronged by a system that often overlooked the rights of marginalized individuals. "Look," Angela continued, her tone softening slightly but still firm. "I understand you're trying to do your job, but you need to consider the implications of your actions. My husband is not a criminal. He's a dedicated father and husband. You're making a mistake." As she spoke, Marcus watched from inside the police car, his heart swelling with pride and gratitude for his wife. He had always known Angela was strong-willed and fiercely intelligent, but seeing her stand up for him in such a critical moment filled him with hope. He could see the officers' expressions changing as they listened to her. Officer Daniels glanced at his partner, who looked equally uncertain. "We need to verify this information," he finally conceded, his voice lacking conviction. "But until then, we have to follow protocol." Angela seized the moment. Protocol doesn't mean disregarding justice or common sense. If you truly believe in your duty as law enforcement officers, you should be willing to listen and investigate properly before making an arrest. The other officers exchanged glances again, their confidence further eroding under Angela's relentless questioning. She could feel the tide beginning to turn in her favor. "Let's take a step back," she suggested calmly. "Why don't we contact the witnesses from Malik's soccer practice? They can confirm Marcus's alibi." With that suggestion hanging in the air, Officer Daniels hesitated before nodding reluctantly. "All right," he said slowly. "We'll make some calls." As he stepped away to use his radio, Angela turned her attention back to Marcus through the car window. Their eyes met, and she gave him an encouraging smile that said everything would be all right. Minutes felt like hours as they waited for Officer Daniels to return with news. During that time, Angela took a moment to reflect on how quickly everything had escalated. This wasn't just about Marcus, it was about challenging systemic biases that often led to wrongful arrests of people like her husband, innocent individuals caught in a web of assumptions based on race. Finally, Officer Daniels returned with a look of resignation on his face. "We contacted several witnesses from the soccer practice," he admitted reluctantly. "They all confirmed that Marcus was there during the time of the robbery." Angela felt a rush of relief wash over her, but quickly tempered it with caution. She knew this wasn't over yet. "Good," she said firmly, but with a hint of triumph in her voice. "Now it's time for you to release him." Officer Daniels hesitated again, glancing at his fellow officers who looked equally conflicted. "We still need to fill out some paperwork first," he replied slowly. Angela narrowed her eyes at him. "Paperwork? You've already established that there's no basis for this arrest. You can't hold him any longer without justification." The tension hung heavy in the air as Officer Daniels weighed his options. Finally, he sighed deeply and waved toward another officer standing nearby. "Get him out of there," he instructed begrudgingly. As Marcus emerged from the police car, relief flooded over him like a wave crashing against rocks. He rushed into Angela's arms, holding her tightly as if afraid she might disappear. "I thought I'd lost you," he whispered into her hair. "You'll never lose me," Angela replied fiercely, pulling back to look into his eyes. "I'm here for you always." The officers stood by awkwardly as they witnessed this moment of vulnerability between husband and wife, a stark reminder of how personal these encounters could become. "Mr. Thompson," Officer Daniels began hesitantly, breaking the silence that had enveloped them all. "We're sorry for this misunderstanding." Marcus looked at him incredulously. "A misunderstanding? You handcuffed me and accused me of robbery without any evidence." "I know it doesn't make it right," Daniels replied quietly, his demeanor shifting from authoritative to apologetic. "But we acted based on a report we received." Angela interjected before Marcus could respond. "And that report was based on assumptions rather than facts. This is exactly why we need systemic change in how law enforcement operates." The officers shifted uncomfortably again as they absorbed her words. It was clear that this encounter had left an impression on them, one that might challenge their perceptions moving forward. As Marcus and Angela walked away from the scene hand in hand, they felt an overwhelming sense of relief mixed with determination. They both knew that their fight wasn't just about one wrongful arrest, it was part of something much larger, a movement toward justice and equality that needed voices like theirs. In the days that followed, Angela began drafting letters and reaching out to community organizations focused on police reform and racial justice. She wanted to ensure that their experience would not be forgotten or dismissed as just another isolated incident. Meanwhile, Marcus took time off work to be present for Malik and help process what had happened during those harrowing hours when he was wrongfully accused. They spent quality time together playing games, watching movies, and having heartfelt conversations about justice and standing up for what is right. Through it all, they remained hopeful that their story would resonate with others facing similar injustices in their communities, sparking conversations about accountability within law enforcement and inspiring action toward meaningful change. What had begun as a terrifying ordeal transformed into an opportunity for advocacy, a chance not only for personal healing but also for collective empowerment within their community. As they prepared for upcoming discussions with local leaders about police practices and community relations, Marcus felt renewed strength surging through him, a determination fueled by love for his family and faith in their ability to make a difference together. This incident would not define them. Instead, it would serve as a catalyst, a reminder of why they fought so hard for justice, and inspire them to continue pushing forward toward a brighter future where everyone is treated fairly under the law regardless of race or background. Their journey was just beginning. Together they would rise stronger than ever before, united against injustice while standing firmly for what is right. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the city, Angela and Marcus returned home, still reeling from the events of the day. The relief of Marcus's release was palpable, but the weight of what had just transpired lingered heavily in the air. They knew they had narrowly escaped a life-altering situation, but the reality of systemic injustice weighed on their minds. Once inside their cozy home, Malik rushed to greet them, his innocent smile lighting up the room. "Daddy, you're back," he exclaimed, throwing his little arms around Marcus. The embrace was heartwarming, a reminder of what truly mattered amidst the chaos. "Hey, buddy. I missed you," Marcus replied, kneeling down to hug his son tightly. The warmth of family enveloped him, momentarily easing the tension that had built up throughout the day. Angela watched them with a mixture of love and concern. She knew they needed to talk about what had happened, but she also wanted to protect Malik from the harsh realities of the world outside. "How about we have some pizza for dinner and watch your favorite movie?" she suggested, hoping to create a sense of normalcy for Malik. "Yay! Pizza!" Malik cheered, his excitement infectious. As they settled down for dinner, Angela couldn't shake off her thoughts about the incident. She glanced at Marcus, who seemed lost in contemplation. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. Marcus sighed deeply. "I'm just trying to process everything. It's hard to believe that something like this could happen to me, especially when I've always tried to do everything right." Angela nodded in understanding. "I know, but we can't let this define us or our family. We need to channel this experience into something positive." After dinner, as Malik played with his toys in the living room, Angela pulled out her laptop and began drafting a letter to local community leaders and organizations focused on police reform. She wanted to ensure that their story would not only raise awareness but also inspire action. "Marcus," she called out after typing for a while, "I think it's important for us to share our experience with others. We need to advocate for change. This shouldn't just be another story that fades away." Marcus joined her at the dining table, curiosity piqued. "What do you have in mind?" "I want to organize a community meeting," Angela explained passionately. "We can invite local leaders, activists, and residents to discuss police practices and how we can work together to create a safer environment for everyone." Marcus felt a surge of pride at Angela's determination. "That sounds like a great idea, but how do we even start?" "We can reach out to community organizations that focus on civil rights and social justice," Angela suggested. "They'll have resources and connections that can help us get this off the ground." With renewed energy, they began brainstorming ideas for the meeting, topics to discuss, potential speakers to invite, and ways to engage their neighbors in meaningful dialogue about justice and accountability. As they worked late into the night, Marcus felt a sense of purpose replacing the fear that had gripped him earlier that day. He realized that while he had faced an injustice, he could use his voice and experiences to advocate for others who might not have the same opportunity. The following week was filled with activity as they reached out to various organizations and spread the word about their upcoming community meeting. They created flyers and shared information on social media platforms, inviting anyone interested in discussing police reform and community safety. On the day of the meeting, excitement buzzed through their neighborhood as residents gathered in the local community center. Angela stood at the front of the room alongside Marcus, feeling both nervous and empowered as she prepared to share their story. The room filled with diverse voices, families, young adults, elders, all eager to engage in conversations about justice and equality. As Angela began speaking about their experience with law enforcement, she could see heads nodding in agreement. Many had similar stories of encounters with police that left them feeling vulnerable and powerless. "Today isn't just about my husband's story," Angela emphasized passionately. "It's about all of us coming together to demand accountability from those who are to protect us." The audience erupted into applause as Marcus took his turn at the microphone. He spoke candidly about his fears during the arrest, the helplessness he felt, and how grateful he was for Angela's support. "I never thought I'd find myself in this situation," he said earnestly, "but it opened my eyes to how easily things can go wrong when assumptions are made based on race alone." As they shared their experiences, others began stepping forward to share their own stories filled with pain, but also resilience and hope. The atmosphere shifted from one of fear and frustration to empowerment as individuals found solidarity in each other's narratives. By the end of the evening, there was a palpable sense of unity among those present, a collective determination to advocate for change within their community. They discussed forming a community coalition focused on police accountability and outreach programs aimed at fostering better relationships between law enforcement and residents. As people began leaving the meeting, Many approached Marcus and Angela with words of gratitude for sharing their story and inspiring action within their community. "You've sparked something important here," one woman said tearfully as she hugged them both tightly. "Thank you for having the courage to speak out." That night marked a turning point not only for Marcus and Angela but for their entire neighborhood, a realization that together they could challenge systemic injustices and work toward creating a safer environment for everyone. In the weeks that followed, momentum continued to build as more residents joined their coalition. They organized workshops focused on educating community members about their rights when interacting with law enforcement, empowering individuals with knowledge that could help prevent future injustices. Angela found herself busier than ever, but invigorated by her work. She felt like they were making tangible progress toward a change that would benefit not just their family but countless others facing similar struggles. Meanwhile, Marcus took on an active role within the coalition as well. He attended meetings regularly and helped coordinate events aimed at fostering dialogue between community members and local law enforcement officials. Through it all, the challenges they faced together only strengthened their bond as partners fighting for justice side by side, a testament not only to love but also unwavering commitment toward making a difference in an often unjust world. As they looked ahead toward future initiatives aimed at fostering understanding between law enforcement officers and communities they served, Marcus couldn't help but feel hopeful about what lay ahead. He realized that while one incident had threatened his family's peace, it ultimately became a catalyst for positive change, a reminder that even amidst adversity there is always room for growth, and hope shines brightest when fueled by love and unity among those willing to stand up against injustice together. As the weeks turned into months, the community coalition that Marcus and Angela had helped establish began to flourish. What started as a response to a personal injustice transformed into a movement aimed at fostering dialogue, understanding, and accountability between law enforcement and residents. The energy in the neighborhood shifted. People were more engaged, more willing to speak up about their experiences, and more determined to effect change. The coalition organized regular meetings where community members could share their stories and discuss strategies for improving relations with local police. They invited guest speakers, lawyers, activists, and even sympathetic police officers to facilitate discussions on rights, responsibilities, and the importance of community policing. These sessions became a safe space for residents to voice their concerns and seek solutions together. Marcus took on an active role in these gatherings, often sharing his own story as a way to connect with others. He spoke candidly about the fear he felt during his arrest and how Angela's presence had empowered him. "It's crucial that we support one another," he would say, urging others to stand up against injustice. "We can't allow fear to silence us." Angela, meanwhile, continued her advocacy work with renewed vigor. She collaborated with local civil rights organizations to develop educational materials that informed residents about their rights during police encounters. She also worked on initiatives aimed at training police officers in cultural competency and de-escalation techniques, efforts that she believed could bridge the gap between law enforcement and the communities they served. As their coalition gained traction, they decided to host a community event, a day of dialogue, inviting residents and police officers alike to come together for open discussions. The event featured workshops, panel discussions, and opportunities for attendees to engage in one-on-one conversations. The goal was simple: to humanize each other's experiences and foster mutual understanding. On the day of the event, the community center was buzzing with excitement. Tables were set up with informational booths, and volunteers greeted attendees with warm smiles. As people arrived, they were encouraged to write down their thoughts on large poster boards labeled, "What does justice mean to you and how can we build trust?" Angela opened the event with a heartfelt speech that resonated deeply with everyone present. "Today is not just about addressing past grievances, it's about building a future where everyone feels safe and respected," she said passionately. "We are here to listen, learn, and grow together." The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as residents mingled with police officers in an environment designed for dialogue rather than confrontation. Marcus observed as people shared their stories, some tearfully recounting painful experiences while others expressed hope for change. As the day progressed, several officers participated in panel discussions where they openly acknowledged the challenges faced by both law enforcement and communities of color. They discussed their commitment to improving practices within their departments and emphasized the importance of community engagement. One officer shared his own journey of understanding bias within policing. "I grew up in this neighborhood," he said earnestly. "I've seen firsthand how fear can create barriers between us. I want to do better for my community and for my colleagues." The candidness of the officers surprised many attendees but also fostered an environment of trust. People began approaching them with questions about policies and procedures, conversations that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. By the end of the day, it was clear that something significant had shifted within the community. People left feeling empowered. They had shared their stories, listened to one another, and engaged in meaningful dialogue that could lead to lasting change. In the weeks following the day of dialogue, Marcus and Angela noticed a tangible difference in their neighborhood. More residents were attending coalition meetings, eager to participate in discussions about safety and justice. The local police department began implementing some of the suggestions made during the event, initiating regular community forums aimed at maintaining open lines of communication. However, not all responses were positive. There were still skeptics who felt that true change was impossible, or that law enforcement would never fully embrace accountability. But Marcus and Angela remained undeterred by criticism. They understood that change takes time and persistence. One evening, after a particularly successful coalition meeting, Marcus sat down with Angela at their kitchen table. "Do you think we're really making a difference?" he asked thoughtfully. Angela smiled warmly at him. "Absolutely," she replied confidently. "Every conversation we have is a step toward progress. We're not just changing policies, we're changing hearts and minds." As they reflected on their journey from that harrowing day of Marcus's arrest to becoming advocates for justice, they realized how far they had come together as a family and as a community. Their experience had not only strengthened their bond but also ignited a passion within them, both a commitment to fight for justice, not just for themselves but for everyone who had ever felt marginalized or unheard. With renewed determination, they looked ahead toward future initiatives aimed at fostering understanding between law enforcement officers and the communities they served, knowing that while one incident had threatened their family's peace, it ultimately became a catalyst for positive change, a reminder that even amidst adversity there is always room for growth, and hope shines brightest when fueled by love and unity among those willing to stand up against injustice together. As the months rolled on, Marcus and Angela's efforts began to bear fruit. The community coalition continued to grow, drawing in more residents eager to engage in discussions about justice, safety, and accountability. The relationships between law enforcement and the community were slowly but surely transforming. One evening, as they prepared for another coalition meeting, Angela received a phone call from the local news station. They had heard about the coalition's work and wanted to feature Marcus and Angela in a segment highlighting community efforts toward police reform. Excitement bubbled within them. This was an opportunity to amplify their message and inspire others. The day of the interview arrived, and the couple sat down with a reporter in their living room. As they shared their story, they spoke not only of the challenges they faced but also of the hope they had found in their community. "This isn't just about our experience," Marcus emphasized. "It's about creating a safer, more just environment for everyone." The segment aired a few days later, reaching thousands of viewers across the city. Responses poured in, messages of support from those who had faced similar injustices, and expressions of gratitude from individuals inspired by their courage to speak out. As word spread about their coalition's initiatives, local officials began to take notice. They reached out to Marcus and Angela to discuss potential partnerships aimed at enhancing community policing efforts. The couple found themselves at the forefront of a movement that was gaining momentum, a movement fueled by shared experiences and a collective desire for change. One evening, as they sat together watching Malik play in the backyard, Marcus turned to Angela with a sense of fulfillment. "I never imagined we'd be here, making such an impact," he said softly. Angela smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "It all started with one moment, one injustice that could have broken us but instead brought us together." They knew that their journey was far from over. There were still battles to fight and voices that needed to be heard. But as they looked at each other, they felt an unshakable bond, a commitment not only to each other but also to their community. Together, they had turned a painful experience into a powerful catalyst for change, and as they continued their work, they remained hopeful that their story would inspire others to stand up against injustice, reminding everyone that even in the face of adversity, love and unity could pave the way for a brighter future. In the end, it wasn't just about Marcus's wrongful arrest. It was about building bridges where walls once stood, about fostering understanding where fear had reigned, and about creating a legacy of justice that would resonate for generations to come.